Aloha and welcome back to the Soul What podcast. This is Jason. I am your host. Thank you, whoever's listening. Shout out to Kiani if you're listening. I heard you might be. Today, I want to read some Rumi. This is in my edition of The Pocket Rumi. It's called Don't Linger. Here we go. By God, don't linger in any spiritual benefit you have gained, but yearn for more, like one suffering from illness whose thirst for water is never quenched. This divine court is the plane of the infinite. Leave the seat of honor behind. Let the way be your seat of honor. I was reading that earlier today, and well, first of all, Rumi was a Persian Sufi mystic. He was, and this is my interpretation, fascinated by the divine, exploring a divine way of being, seeking, living, breathing, exploring. And he was a poet, and he documented his observations. And a lot of times, too, if you really dive into his work, you get the sense that there was this deep joy, but also I would say a longing to connect with the divine, however you define that. So many years back, I discovered Rumi, then Hafiz, and have read a number of different spiritual texts over the years. And what I liked about this particular piece, I liked the sense of having not arrived. I feel like so often is there a rush to get somewhere, and I'm as guilty as anyone else of having lived like that. I'm still working on diving in and being more present. But when I read that earlier today, as I just reflected, I thought it was kind of cool. Today, as I'm recording, it's February 25th, 2024. And on February 25th, 2020, my dad passed away. Or as my teacher might say, his soul finished its work here. And it's been interesting wandering and traveling with grief. And when I was reading this earlier, I kind of felt like it spoke to that. Grieving, it's like it's constantly teaching you. There's all sorts of new things that come with it. There's the missing the person. There's the sadness, I guess, that comes with that. Then there's like the love because of just really the wonderful things that were experienced. There's some laughter in there. I almost laughed just now because in the background you can hear Kobe as he's clearing his throat. And then there's just all kinds of other stuff. I was talking with Bev earlier, and I don't know if how common this is, but for me, like it's almost like a guilt with the grief in terms of, is it okay to keep living joyfully and be excited? Now, the obvious answer is yes, it is. But it's at times kind of feels foreign just because it's so different. And I guess for me, it's some of the most amazing things in my life have happened after my dad has passed away. And I mean, sure, on a greater level in the divine infinite and the connection of all of this, like, his spirit's still out there, right? And there's all of that. But very much in the 3D sense, there is an absence. And so as I kind of go through all these different highs and lows of life, period, because that's really just the nature of life, it's very, very odd for me. And being reflective and being a deep thinker, I just try to observe as best as I can. Coincidentally, I happened to get a haircut today, and it's funny because, not funny, but my original haircut got rescheduled because my barber had an emergency, family emergency. So when I was talking to him, he was just like, "Oh, hey, thanks for being flexible." And I was like, "Yeah, man, no worries. Hope everything's okay." And he shared with me that his grandmother is, slowing down, and family needs to get together and talk about some things. And he ended up kind of sharing a little bit about his perspective, his journey. And I thought it was really, really interesting. And it's also fascinating to talk to someone else who, and there's, I think, honestly, a great many people who can dive in and express all sorts of things on a deeper level, what's going on for them, the thoughts that come with that. And it was kind of interesting. So I shared with him a little bit just about observings and musings I've had in the last 4 years. And, I think one of the things that gets me at times is the pandemic rolled out so quickly with right after dad passed away. And it's not that it took away from it, but I guess in a way it limited some of the things that probably would have happened. Like we haven't had a service. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I guess if we had perhaps my experience of everything would be a little different. And really I don't know, because my experience is my experience, and that's just what it is, and that's what it's like for everybody. And it's so interesting because and that's what I like about going back to the Rumi poem. I think people, we can think we know because of what we've been through, what it's like for another, but at the end of the day, it's really it's everyone's. It's different, it's unique, and I think that's what needs to be honored. I i think anyone that makes an assumption to think that because they've experienced something or felt something, it is directly applicable to another person, I think that's wishful thinking at best. I do believe it's possible to connect better with somebody, because if you feel something and someone else has felt something, no matter how they arrived there and how you arrived there, then there's the ability to connect. But it's still different. And at least as I continue and kind of go through this whole process and this journey, all these experiences, I think that's okay. I think what's not okay is a lack of tolerance for differences of any kind, because the reality is if any single one of us was born in a different place, a different time, different family, different insert here, it can be strongly argued that the experience, the way that person manifests and navigates life, is completely different. And seeing it on some level, it feels very silly to me. But on another, I think it needs to be said, because I think too often there's just these blanket assumptions and they get applied to everything. And there are some things in life that are black and white, but certainly there's a lot more grays, and there's different intensities in the contrast that you find between all the different black, white, and gray in between. So I really like that Rumi poem because it kind of spoke to, I guess, my meditation on it. Uh, it's weird. In years past, I felt more emotional than I did today. I'm sure at other times though, and that's what's also fascinating about grief, is there's times where like something will happen and it hits you, and then it's like, wow, the ugly cry. Uh, but for some reason today, and maybe it's just a combination of being a little tired and having a lot going on, I I guess I have more space within myself to hold that grief and to kind of go through it and compartmentalize, which if that's growth, I'll take it. It doesn't make the grief any lighter. It doesn't make it any less important, I think. It's just one of those beautiful scars you should really live with and carry. So I'm definitely grateful to have had some really amazing experiences in the last 4 years. I'm grateful that I've been able to appreciate and see that there's been these amazing experiences. It bums me out that I can't have those conversations with Dad, but that's okay. That's life. It's the journey. Everything has a reason, a season over the course of our lifetime. So this is just kind of how it manifested in my own. And going back to the idea of each one of us kind of just needs to just keep going. There's no destination. The way really is the destination. The journey is really what it's all about. It's not about the ending. It's about just being. I hope it all, I don't know about makes sense, because I don't think it's really possible to fully grasp humanity and being alive and the speck of dust that we are. But I hope the wonder and the joy of it really at some point supersedes everything, because there's certainly a lot of stuff out there in the universe and in our dailies. Just going back to something my brother said a few weeks back. Stop reading the news. I mean, in my opinion, be aware, but don't let the news definitely, to his point, rob you of your joy, because there's certainly our fair of tragedies and challenges out there for us to walk into. So today's a bit more somber of a podcast, but that's where I'm at on the journey. And wherever you're at in the journey, just be. Because what's really important about really being wherever we are, I think that's really the only way that we can move. And by that, I mean not get stuck. So many times we just get stuck. We get stuck in anxiety, fear, anger, stress, depression. Very real experiences that can teach us and serve a role, but I don't think we're meant to be stuck there living in that. And I'm choosing to think that. I really can't prove as to why that should be the case, but I know that it's healthier because it mentally and emotionally feels better to see something, recognize it, honor it, and then move and allow. And I think going back to the idea that there's been a lot of really amazing things that have happened in the last couple of years, even after my dad passed. I had to have allowed that. It could have been totally, totally different. So with that, thanks for being out there. Enjoy your journey. Keep going. One step, one breath, one beat of the heart at a time. Because if you have even one more of those, just another day, eyes open, consciousness is expanded from the previous day, opportunity to get out there and get at it. That's a blessing. All right. Have a good one. Hui ho.